and welcome. I am Jay,
I'm Jen.
and we are here doing our first review show. It's our first review show. So if we'll review movies and TV shows and drinks. If there's anything you would like us to review, just like put the comment below or look us up on Facebook. We're on Facebook.
Drink recipes.
Or drink recipes you'd like us to try. Anyway, we're here doing our first review, film review.
Yes.
The film I've been looking forward to all year, because I'm a big 8-year-old. And that is Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Affectionately referred to as Godzilla 2, because it is the sequel to 2014's Godzilla movie by Gareth Edwards. What were your thoughts?
Overall, I thought it was a great action movie. I am also a fan of Godzilla, not to the extent of my beloved here, who's been pounding me with Godzilla for months, and I'm finally glad that the movie came out. But it was all in all, it was a really, really good action movie. I love Godzilla. I love all the other monsters. And what he and I have been bantering about back and forth since we saw it yesterday was the human capacity, or human element of the film, I should say.
Or lack thereof,
Or lack
depending
thereof.
on some people's point of view.
Lots of reviews to the negative in that regard.
Yes, but don't let the critics sway you. I think a lot of that blowback is coming from people not knowing what to expect. Let's face it, the whole kaiju giant monster movie thing, it is a niche market. It's generally made up of a subset of sci-fi, fantasy, comic book fans.
Mm-hmm.
Having said that, I think that a lot of the criticisms leveled against this film come from people who either A, had unrealistic expectations,
Mm-hmm.
or B, honestly went into it with different expectations. I liken it to, nobody ever bought a ticket to WrestleMania to see the character development and stories play out between whatever wrestlers. You know, you go to WrestleMania because you want to see the characters you like beat the crap out of the characters you don't like.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. You don't expect like, oh wow, that was really great the way that female wrestler and that announcer got together and their characters over this season developed, and at WrestleMania they finally kissed. No, nobody gives a crap about that. You go to see men in underwear beating the piss out of each other. And that's what you should expect from a Godzilla movie. This wasn't ever going to be Shakespearean in nature. You were never going to see character development and plot development on the scale of, Pride and Prejudice or, and stuff like that. This was, people want to see a 300-foot radioactive fire-breathing lizard beat the piss out of other 300-foot radioactive creatures. And in that regard, this movie delivered. At least that's what I thought. That's what I went into it expecting, and it hit every one of my expectations. If you're the type that somehow magically acquired some liberal arts degree in, Shakespearean literature, this is probably not the movie for you. But if you just want to go see giant monsters kicking the shit out of each other, it probably is. Actually, I can tell you, it is. It is. And I don't just say that as a Godzilla fanboy, which admittedly I am. I just say that as somebody who likes action movies. I was a little let down with the whole Avengers Infinity War and Endgame thing. Because yes, it had lots of big boom, explosions and action and stuff like that. But it still felt like it didn't hit all the marks I was hoping for in just an action movie. Mm-hmm. Now, as a Marvel movie, it was great. But just as an action movie, I kind of found it, and I know some people are going to give me shit for that, but that's okay. You're allowed to. It just didn't hit all the marks for me. But overall, it was okay. Whereas with this, I think I went into it, at least from Godzilla fanboy point of view, expecting certain things, none of which was, let's get into the inner workings of, Millie Bobby Brown's.
I love Millie Bobby.
Millie Bobby. I was never expecting to get into the inner workings of her existential crisis because of her parents splitting up. I wasn't there for that. If you were there for that, you got screwed. This isn't your movie. Don't go see it. I wasn't there for that. I was just like, okay, I understand why her parents are doing what they did. I understand what happened with her parents' relationship, and I understand that she's kind of being the ping pong ball between mommy and daddy. I get it. Not a problem. I was okay with that. I didn't think it was lacking in that. Do you not agree?
No, continue.
No, you don't agree?
No, I wasn't trying to interrupt.
Oh, okay.
Continue.
I think the main characters being Millie Bobby and her parents, played by
Vera Farmiga.
Vera Fromage.
And I don't.
Vera,
I like Vera.
Vera Farmiga.
Farmiga.
Okay, I always screw up her
She
name.
was in the Conjuring movies. If you're into
Yes,
that
yes.
horror stuff.
Yes, great series.
And I forget the dude's name. Who played the dad.
But the character was Mark Russell, the dad.
Yes.
I thought they were developed. Like I said, I some of these criticisms about characters were one-dimensional. Yeah, to a certain, like the main characters, those three, Dr. Shirazawa,
And the other woman doctor, I forget her name.
Dr. Hawkins.
Hawkins.
I forget the actress that plays her, but
That's fine.
Dr. Hawkins. They were fleshed out, and they needed to be. The rest of the cast were kind of secondary and just in supporting role. And I think what caught a lot of people off guard was they were known actors. Usually those would be played by people you didn't know. These were played by actors you do know
To
from
fill the air gaps.
from other
Yeah.
other things, and people were expecting, I guess, more from those characters. But in the context of the film, there was never going to be more to those characters.
I think one of the chief complaints that we've heard as far as the human element of the film is that this is not a comedy movie. It's a very dark film. So there's never much light in this film. It's all either filmed at night or in dark places like Antarctica.
Mm-hmm.
There's no sun, there's nothing. It's just gloom. It's not a comedy. And when you have secondary supporting characters who throw in these really stupid one-liners like, "Hey, let's invite him in for a beer," it's just things like that. It's really not necessary. If it's a dark film, if it's a serious film, which this was, they were facing a real serious problem.
Yeah, as serious as a giant
As
monster
serious as a
movie can
giant
be.
monster, destroying your world, basically. And then you throw in these cheesy ass, stupid one-liners that really could have just gone without, I think.
I that's one criticism I'll agree with. I
Yeah.
think they did a little bit too much with the one-liners.
The layer of cheese was a little too thick.
But I like cheese. Give me the grilled cheese. Give me all the fromage. And I like cheese. But here's the thing, though. Yes, I do agree. They did too much with the one-liner, chuckle, chuckle, throw away
Yeah.
lines. I agree with that. But then again, like I said, and I'm using a point of reference with the previous big movie that I've seen was Infinity Wars and Endgame, and I almost saw them back to back. There was like 2 weeks in between them for me. Marvel also does a lot of cheesy one-line. Captain America and Iron Man and Thor are in the middle of trying to save the universe, and somebody comes out with a cheesy one-liner. Like for instance, should have gone for the head. Really? Somebody just whacks you with a magical freaking axe, and that's your response? Should have gone for the head? I mean, if that's not a level of cheese, I mean that's got craft written all over it. You know what I mean?
Let me ask you this: what was your favorite part of the film
My favorite part of the film.
that stands out?
Well, I had a couple, okay. As a Godzilla fanboy, any scene with Godzilla was my favorite. And you can bear witness, I literally kept scrunching up to the edge of my seat during certain parts of it.
Yes, he did.
A
A lot of this. Yeah.
Yes, I admit to that. So as a
I
fan,
watched you more than the film.
okay, well, I can be rather animated at times. As a fanboy, my favorite things were anything with Godzilla because they really brought Godzilla to life. Like if you've been a Godzilla fan, like I have since you've been like 6, 7 years old, I can remember watching Godzilla vs. Megalon in like 1979. You know what I mean? So seeing it brought to life in this way was just like I was over the moon. The best way I can equate it was that first time you saw the dinosaurs in the first Jurassic Park. Mm-hmm. That sheer, that's what it's supposed to look like moment. That's what I kept having every time Godzilla was on screen. Mm-hmm. One of the other really great moments for me, I've never been a Mothra fan. I always looked at Mothra. Mothra to me was like Rodan, like Anguirus, for all you Godzilla fans, Ghidorah, and kind of a secondary, supporting cast for whatever Godzilla happens to be doing in a particular film. This movie, Mothra was the shit. I got it.
Agree. She was good.
They took Mothra to a whole other level.
She was beautiful.
Not only did she look great, they captured the character, what Mothra is supposed to represent, because she was sort of this benevolent entity, protector, so to speak, and they played that up. Like, she wasn't like, hey, all the monsters coming out, let's get on with this Royal Rumble. She was more just like, hey,
you're beating on my boy.
Yeah, you're beating on my boy Big G, and I'm not cool with that's my man. You don't mess with my man. And so she brought that, and especially the way she brought the smackdown on Rodan.
Yes.
She brought this.
Spoilers. If you haven't seen the movie, it's a little late to say it now.
Yeah, it's a little late now. Yes.
We'll put it in the captions
I'll
later.
put it in the captions.
But,
yes,
yeah.
There's going to be spoilers here.
If you haven't seen the movie, stop here.
But the way she brought the smackdown to Rodan, I thought was awesome. Like,
it was good.
–
Unexpected, because you thought that she was really not going to make it.
Right, you thought that, like, oh, she's pretty, but she's going to get her ass kicked.
She's like, nah, bitch.
Yeah, and then she brings the hurt to Rodan in such a way that I was just like, oh, shit. Speaking of which, Rodan, and I heard this from Black Nerd Reviews, and I think he nailed it, so I'm gonna steal this from him. He said, Rodan in this movie. Rodan is the Starscream to Godzilla. Starscream from Transformers.
Yes.
That was Rodan in this movie. Because Rodan, they spend 5-10 minutes Rodan coming out the volcano, and Rodan's like, I'm a big firebird, and check me out, I'm a Titan, and I'm gonna spin, and I'm gonna flip, and then the minute any of the other Titans show up, Rodan's like, I'm sorry, can I shine your shoes? Like, literally. So, yeah, Rodan is Godzilla's Starscream.
That's good.
Okay? Literally, because
I agree.
Rodan thought he was the shit, and then Ghidorah pops up, and Rodan's like, I'm sorry, and then Rodan, especially at the end, Rodan shows up, and Godzilla looks at him like, bitch, I'm gonna smack you, and Rodan's like, I'm sorry,
yeah.
So, and then there's Ghidorah, King Ghidorah. They got King Ghidorah awesome.
Badass.
Yes, King Ghidorah is no joke. And I like how each individual head had its own personality.
Yes.
There was the one head that was sniffing the humans.
The middle one kept the other two in check.
Yeah. The one of the heads seems to like to eat a lot and play with its food. Because there's one scene where the one head is kind of like
doing its own thing,
sniffing the humans, like, "Hey, is this like a kibble, a snack?" And the other head is kind of like, "What are you doing? We got work to do."
He actually pulls him up by the ear.
Yes,
like,
he pulls him away by the ear, like, "Stop." The humans are.
Don't play with your food.
Don't play with those. Those are not important. We got the big lizard over here. So I thought King Ghidorah was done really well and scary.
Yeah.
It wasn't just like
None of these were like the little rainbow monsters or
no.
It was very. It's a dark film. They're actual monsters. They're not there to like make you giggle and say whatever.
Right.
They actually.
Although I think I probably did it a couple of times.
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
You did.
And then, like I said, then there's Godzilla. and Godzilla was just the best Godzilla I've ever seen.
I think one of the things I liked about Godzilla himself, was the fact that, you know, when he was down, when he was hurt, when he was injured, they always showed his eyes, and I think that's key, because you know and you realize that you know, even though he is this titan, he's this monster, he's the king of monsters, you know, there's that human element of what he's feeling, and they show it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like when, you know, when the doctor goes up to touch him,
Right.
you know, and he just looks at him, and I
got teary-eyed.
yeah, I mean, it's just, you know, they're looking at each other, you know, eye to eye, and it's just like, dude, I feel you, you know, and
Yeah.
I think that's an important element of the film, is that, you know, he does get hurt, you know,
Well,
he's not invincible.
Yes. Well, Michael Dougherty, the director, has stated emphatically he was a Godzilla fanboy growing up, and it shows in this film, because they hit all the classic marks of a Godzilla film, including the fact that Godzilla will get hurt, will, like almost like the way the Rocky movies play out. He'll have this first encounter with the bad guy.
He'll be down for the count for a while.
He'll be down for a while, but then he has this moment where cue Eye of the Tiger, and we're gonna come back and we're gonna win. You know what I mean? And that happens in this movie. You know, although it was more because of humans than because of the other monsters. The humans kind of like screwed the pooch on this one. But having said that, what was your favorite part of it?
I think it was that part. I think the fact that they showed that he was not invincible. And there were several parts of this film where he got knocked on his ass pretty good, and it showed that, you know, he was like, how, you know, that, you know, that hurt. And I think that it's that, and just the constant buildups, the blue light that builds up.
Oh, his intimidation display?
Yeah,
on his
dorsal
I
think
fins?
the light, whatever that's called, I don't know, his power, his fire, wherever it comes, just just the sound and the build up.
Oh, the whole like, yeah, sound wise, it was phenomenal. Like,
especially at the end where he was like radioactive and it wasn't blue anymore. It was just this. It was literally like hydrogen bomb worthy.
Yeah.
It was red, and every time it just built up, it just went into this big red bubble of energy.
Yes, and I like how they played it up. It wasn't just like and then like deafening noise.
And multiple times. You usually have to wait.
Yeah, it was kind of like this again. this build up to it. I like that. Having said that, like some of the other criticisms that I've seen, some people have criticized like the coloring of the movie, like, oh, it's too blue, it's too red, and stuff like that. There's okay, well, and the reason why the reason why I say that is because there's reasons for it, and if you pay attention in the film, you kind of get the reasons. The reason why everything was dark and gloomy and stormy and stuff, like you see in the trailers, they explain that. They actually explain that, why that is, in the film. Now, I don't know if the people who have been criticizing that picked up on that, but it's actually explained in the film. How there's these natural forces and these unnatural forces, Ghidorah being one of the unnatural forces. And that's what's creating all these odd and unique weather patterns
phenomena
that are following some of the Titans
like a Category
around.
6 hurricane, that he was the core, and then this Category 6 hurricane just enveloped him as he moved.
Right.
So there was always...
And they actually explained it.
Yeah.
And they kind of developed the whole idea, specifically with Mothra and Godzilla, is like this blue light was more of the benevolent ones, the ones that were...
Menacing.
What?
Menacing.
No, not so much that, but they were the ones that you knew were like the good guys. Instead of all black and white hats, it was like the good guys tend to have this very pretty bluish sort of glow light to them.
Right.
Whereas the more menacing ones, the bad guys, Rodan, Ghidorah, tended to have this very yellow, orange, red sort of coloration to them. And that's actually, if you understand anything about the psychology of colors, you know that certain colors will elicit certain reactions in humans, i.e. dark, red, black, and stuff like that generally tend to elicit this uneasy feeling in humans. Maybe it goes back to our caveman days, you know. Whereas things like blues and yellows and you know, oranges and stuff like that tend to elicit a more calming feeling. And I think that's what the aspect they were trying to play up. So, you know, for those who were criticizing what the coloring or it being too dark and stuff, like I said, all of that's explained in the film. So I wouldn't necessarily call that a criticism. Maybe the individuals complaining about it may not have liked it, but it was done intentionally and it's explained in the movie. Some of the other things I really liked, if you're a Godzilla fan, tons of callbacks. Tons of callbacks. I was sitting there like, especially my oh crap moment with the doctor, chick doctor.
I had no idea what he was talking about.
She had no idea what I was talking about. But especially if you watch any other Godzilla movies and you're a Godzilla fan, especially if you're a Mothra fan, they do this awesome callback. And the way they do it, it makes it believable. It's not stupid. It makes a lot of sense.
Away.
I'm not giving anything away.
Okay.
I'm just saying, especially if you're a Mothra fan,
Yeah.
you know what I'm talking about. They do the callback and it works.
A couple of Easter eggs too.
Couple of Easter eggs for things happening in the MonsterVerse and future films, I'm assuming. To put this one to bed, there are other Titans in this movie.
That are not shown.
No.
They're not shown.
Well, there's not all of them are shown, but
That's what I mean.
there was a couple they did show. Towards the end.
Oh, that's what I meant, the Easter egg.
Oh, okay. Well, there's a couple other kaiju you see, and eventually they show up to pay homage to the king.
Yes, yeah. Oh, yes, that part.
To the king. So there are a couple, but they're not in any of the fights and stuff like that. The fights tend to focus.
You see them throughout the film because they're doing their own
right.
destruction of
They're
some
just kind
sort.
of representing all the Titans going
Yeah.
off on a tangent. So there are other kaiju. Like I said, tons of Godzilla the music.
Yes.
Speaking of Godzilla callbacks, what's his name? Bear McCreary.
Bear McCreary. Outlander.
he knocked it out of the park with it. Yes, he does the Outlander music. But he knocked it out of the park with this, especially him bringing in some of the original Godzilla themes, Mothra themes, and stuff, and incorporating them and updating them for a new soundtrack. Worked really, really good. There was one part when they did that classic Godzilla, dun, 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 and I was just kind of like, yeah! So, I mean, overall, 1 to 10.
I'd give it can we do halves?
Yeah, overall 1 to 10.
All right. Overall, I would give it a solid 8.
8. As a non-Godzilla
As a
fanboy,
non-Godzilla fangirl. You know, just for the action sequences alone, the human element of the film, not so much. But it was just, it all was developed and really, really well. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot.
Okay.
There was never a dull moment in the film. There was always something going on. So,
Yeah.
solid 8.
As a Godzilla fanboy, and let me preface this by saying I don't think there's ever been a 10 out of 10 movie ever made.
Gladiator was close. Close.
I like Gladiator.
I know you
As a Godzilla fanboy, I would give this a solid 8.5 to 9 drifting, depending on what type of mood you catch me in. Like I said, as a Godzilla fan, they hit all the marks.
Yeah.
They delivered on what they promised. They didn't promise that this was going to be some, moral conundrum or, dealing with the inner feelings. No, they promised that this time around you were going to see big-ass monsters kicking the shit out of big-ass monsters, and that's what they gave you in spades.
Yeah. If you're looking to see a Godzilla monster like the '98 version with Matthew Broderick, where it was good for the time, maybe. But if you're looking
like syphilis
for something, if you're looking for that kind of movie where there was a lot of human and very little Godzilla, this is not the movie for you.
No, this one actually is it's, for lack of a better term, it's fan service to Godzilla fans. Everything that
I'll
was,
say 85-15.
what, monsters to humans?
Monsters to humans.
Yeah, the humans sort of just
Yeah.
filled the role of exposition in order for us to get to the next
Yeah.
monsters. And I would agree with that. But like I said, that's what I was expecting when I went into it.
Exactly.
Like, I've been watching Godzilla films, like I said, since the 1970s, and never once have I given a single crap what goes on with the humans.
Yeah.
I'm always just like, okay, let's just roll this along till we can get to the next monster. And that's what this does. So yeah, 8.5 to 9 as a Godzilla fanboy. Like I said, they hit all the right marks. There's lots of throwbacks, lots of callbacks, lots of Easter eggs, some teases for what's coming in next MonsterVerse stuff. Action sequences were freaking phenomenal. But not a perfect movie. Yeah, like I said, a little bit much with the one-liners. And I have to agree with the critics on that one. The one-liners were some of them were good.
Overdone.
Some of them were overdone. Character development, I thought was okay in the sense of, like I said, the main characters, like this core five, that they should have had developed, they did. The rest, even though they were played
Didn't really need to be there.
right, even though they were played by big name actors, I think were just space fillers. They could have been any red shirt, to use the Star Trek reference.
Yeah.
They could have been any red shirt, filling those roles. It didn't have to be known actors doing that. So that's what my take on it would be. Would I recommend this to people? If you like action, adventure, big blockbuster, explosion-y type movies, yeah. I would definitely say you'll enjoy this. If obviously you're a Godzilla fan, you'll definitely enjoy it if you haven't seen it already. If you're looking for, like I said, the inner turmoil as developed by a character as they go through their trials and tribulations,
And the monsters are secondary.
and work to overcome their own inner demons while at the same time defeating the existential threat, this is not your movie. Go see fucking Shakespeare. Go see Much Ado About Nothing with Kenneth Branagh, if that's what you want to see.
I like that.
Yeah, I like that movie too, for those reasons. This is not that movie. If you're all about character development and character story arcs, this will definitely, fall flat the same way season 8 of Game of Thrones did.
Don't get us started on that. That's
but-
a whole other episode entirely.
But if you're just going to see a Godzilla movie or an action movie where there's lots of things blowing up, people running around yelling, giant monsters with radioactive fire breath and lightning breath and big old bugs that'll glow in the dark and stuff, then this is a good movie. Just know what you're getting into. Like I said, nobody that I know would buy tickets to WrestleMania for the character development. And that's what you have to keep in mind. This is what you're doing. You're paying to see giant monsters beat each other up.
And that's what you're going to do.
And you will get that in spades. So overall, 8.5 to 9 from the Godzilla fanboy. 8 from the non-Godzilla fangirl, but the action-adventure fangirl. And, we'd recommend it. I'd see it again. Actually, I plan on seeing it again.
Taking the kid.
Go and take the kid, and if he tries to talk, I'm gonna be like, shut it. So that's our review of Godzilla. So, like we said at the beginning, if there's anything you want us to review, a movie, a TV show, a drink, a recipe for a drink, maybe a music video, maybe if you want us to get our reaction to a music video, we could do that too.
We could do that too.
Yeah, I would do that. I don't know if I'll always like them, but I'll do it.
Well, that's the whole point.
Right, exactly. So if there's any of that stuff you want to see us do, leave a comment down below.